Welcome, Flavia.
Hello, hello.
So good to be with you here.
So nice to be here.
So interesting how we are here together. Like we didn't know each other a couple months ago. This course has brought us together. So it's pretty neat how that happened. So yeah,
Yeah,
thanks for.
it's been great. Yeah, it's been great to connect.
I saw your note on the for the final project, just bringing people into the loop here. Um, Requesting or looking for collaboration, and I was looking for collaboration, and then we just came together, and here we are. I'd love people to get to know you as I get to know you more. So I just want to give you the opportunity to share who you are, where you are,
Mhm.
and whatever else feels relevant and resonant at this moment in time
Yeah,
on August 4th at 11:13 a.m. Eastern Time,
yeah.
2023.
2023, here we are. Yeah, so Flavia Jimenez, she, hers. I am in unceded territory of Piscataway people, known as Maryland in the United States. Um, I was inspired by something I'm reading. If we could begin at the top of the hour, so one of the things that was really great about this class that we took, right, was the breadth, I think, of the all of the people who came on to teach us about their wisdom, their knowledge, their skills, their perspectives. And one of those people that really, I think, caught my attention, especially, all of them caught my attention, but was Kelsey Blackwell. So I'm reading Decolonizing the Body, her book, and just thought, on page 13 of that book, she has an aspiration that I was hoping that I could read from to
Mhm.
really get us grounded in our conversation today.
Thank you.
So thinking about the indigenous people of our land, which has been colonized. So she says, sweet Mother Earth, she's who supports all with generous abundance. Without you, there's nothing. Even in our negligence, you continue to sustain us. May we wake up to care for you with the same attention you unwaveringly offer. May our roots extend down into the soil, and as they do, may we come into contact with the stories that have been buried, our own and those of the places we inhabit. So then she talks about the original caretakers of the land. For me, the Piscataway. May we always recognize and speak your name. May we deeply know that wherever we are, the land that holds us was not discovered. May we see that despite the hollow left by the disposal, enslavement, and subjugation of Native people, you have not been erased. You live and breathe among us. May we embody the tradition of care and reciprocity between earth, beings, and humans that extends back. And then that continues, but I just wanted to open us up with that connection to those who were here in the before the colonization time, to really ground us in our conversation today.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Mhm.
I started this podcast back in 2009, and only in the last few years have I started to acknowledge the land. And of course, doing my own learning and unlearning, and probably doing it wrong, and then getting it right, and then doing it wrong again. Like just always learning and feeling into that. And so I offer a land acknowledgement. And because my focus in the work that I do is on inner wisdom, intuition, acknowledging the wisdom that's inherent in each of us in our bodies, it's been interesting to me to like, why haven't I acknowledged where I am? and where I'm sitting and where I'm breathing, and how I am able to be on this earth, on this land, to be breathing in this body. And so I want to just take this moment as well to thank you for that and acknowledge that I'm in Montreal, Canada, which is known as Tiohtià:ke, unceded Indigenous lands of the Kanien'kehá:ka people and nation, and acknowledging those who have, like you said, come before us. I love that acknowledgement of the land not needing to be discovered, right? And so always humbled by acknowledgement, whether I'm receiving it, giving it, and being curious about how is it that I have come to be here right now, and those in front of me, like acknowledging you and how you are sitting in front of me right now, and where you come from and who you are, and to be curious about all of that. So thank you for bringing that.
Yeah, for me, it's grounding, and I'm learning and unlearning as well. Consider I'm an immigrant, French first generation immigrant from Peru, Argentina on my father's side, having been born in Europe though, and because my parents met there and I was born there, and this nature of the biracial coming into a sense of who my Indigenous ancestors were, and carrying their wisdom internally, and then ending up in my life living in North American Indigenous territory, right? And the learning also about then what it means to have lived in a body, right? In a body that is both the colonized and the colonizer, in a time in which we are called to, many of us, connect with those who lived on the land that we are now occupying, and in a way that feels respectful and honoring, and also know that we don't necessarily always, at least in the place where I don't see Indigenous people like original, inhabitants of this land in a day-to-day basis, but you can feel their presence spiritually. And I think that that's where land acknowledgements really live, is the spiritual acknowledgement of the people who came before us. And so I think that for me is incredibly grounding, to have the ability to do that. And part of the thing that I learned also in this, in this course that we took is this nature of being embodied, right? Like what that means, how it feels, how it brings us more in alignment with our higher self, how we can begin from an embodied practice to gain just more clarity about wherever it is that we want to be going in our lives, right? Whatever it is, whatever community it is we want to be building, whatever practices we want to be doing to heal, and whatever creation of a new vision for the world we want to live in. We are, in a time right now things are terribly chaotic, and I think it's calling us all to be connecting more to our bodies, and then connecting more to the earth that holds us.
I'm hearing reasons why you were attracted to this program, in what you just said. And part of us, the reason why we've come together is to collaborate on, how can we summarize, synthesize, unpack what we are learning in this course together. And I think we've come together because I think there was Coach in one of your sentences, I'm a coach,
Yes.
and I'm like, I'm a coach, and other things too, and you're many things. So I'm just wondering, do you want to speak to like what brought you to the program?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm a learner. I'm always trying to continue to fill my bucket with things that
Hmm.
I can think about my own coaching practice and consultancy practice, but then also just my relationships, right? Like, how can I improve? Just how can I
Just,
just
yeah,
be a better person? Just
right.
be a better friend, a better sister, a better daughter, a better parent.
Mm.
And so I saw this course. I have had participated um, in Reverend Kyoto Williams's sits occasionally. So just got really, really interested in this notion of what can we learn about how we show up for ourselves and for the people around us with a deeper sense of our soma,
Mm.
a deeper sense of how our somatics are giving us signals and sometimes flags about the way in which we're relating to either the thing we're doing or the relationships that we have or are building. And just really interested in that, just really interested in deepening my practice as a meditator, as a yoga teacher, as a social justice advocate and a racial justice advocate that I have been for most of my career. So I just got really interested in that aspect of things. And then, yeah, so I signed up for the class, and I think it has given me a sense of a real essence for where I can tap into resources. So like the question for me was like, okay, well, if I need a resource on this, where could I go?
Hmm.
And certainly because of the breadth of the practices and the speakers and the perspectives, it has allowed me to really tap into a much deeper practice. So, uh, some of the practices in the Decolonizing the Body, the Kelsey Blackwell book, or in Susanna Barkataki's Embodying the Roots of Yoga, or in you know, Resma Manikam's My Grandmother's Hands, which I had, and it just sort of this course just gave that new breath, new life.
Hmm.
Patrice Cullors, so all of these speakers who, learning about the caste system
Hmm.
and within the context of yoga. So all of these things that I think are resources that I wouldn't have known about. Stacey Hines, like she started us off with all of these embodied practices that I'm using in coaching right now, right?
Amazing.
That are like trauma informed. So it feels like I have all of these this real rich plate on my table right now of all of these
Hmm.
sort of this nourishment that I can tap into if I need it, or if I'm coaching a client who could potentially need it or use it for their own healing.
Mm. Nice. It's like whet the appetite. Like all these, when I saw all the names being flashed on the screen, this is who will be teaching this week, and then this one will be joining us next week. And I'm like, seriously? Like
Right.
heavyweight after heavyweight, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, thanks for sharing that. I also came into this through Reverend Kyoto Williams. I had been to one of her retreats at Kripalu. I was trying to remember how many years ago. I don't remember how many. 5, maybe 6. I don't know. Before COVID, and I don't know what happened before COVID, but something happened that was good in general. But it was a great retreat, and I had been listening to her before that, but somehow it happened that I was at the retreat. I mean, I signed up and it was like a weekend away from my family and for myself, and get in the car and like just zone out for 5 hours or zone in. And it was amazing. Love her. And so I'm following her, listening to her, getting her newsletters, and then this popped up. So, and I was like, no, I just like, how many more things to add, right? To like,
Right.
can I take this on now? And evidently the answer was yes. So, I think just everything from like anything that where the body is involved, well, not everything, but like when it's saying like embodying social justice. So there's so much for me that is unknown in that. So much that I want to know, so much that is humbling, so much that is uncomfortable, so much that I want to bring into my own practices in life and to learn, right? That the learner. So I think they asked us a question at the beginning, like, what is your intention for this program, or what do you want to get out of it? And then we had a breakout room. I don't know if you remember that. I don't even know if that was the question specifically, but I think I remember answering something of to the nature of, I just want to be aware of what I'm feeling as I'm experiencing these teachings, these learnings, these breakout rooms, and then like all these incredible people showing up in the breakout rooms, so diverse, and them inviting us to identify ourselves, like in our little Zoom box with our name, and how do we identify, and so are you a white body, person of color, and identify the land that you're on. And so even that to me was just noticing the discomfort around I am white, I'm a white bodied person, and then putting that up and then just feeling into everything, and taking responsibility and then moving through that has been interesting to me. And just I don't even know what I'm saying, but it's just, I feel like I'm just scratching the surface of all of these classes. I haven't been able to finish them. We've talked about it, and I'm hoping to do that this month in time for the deadline. But there's like piles of books here, lots of notes. And I think what I'm mostly noticing for me is like how it feels, and slow the hell down, Julie.
Yeah, I think one of the things that, one of those nuggets that I was mentioning earlier that really stuck with me was when Resmaa Menakem was having a conversation on Zoom with all of us watching, and there was a question that came up, and the person who was describing the situation was describing at a speed in which we normally would talk. We would talk like, we would speak like this, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then just the pausing of it felt like a disruption, but it wasn't there. He was doing it in a way that really allowed the person to slow down and create space for then the feeling of the body in response to the emotion that was coming up as that person was speaking. And I found that so beautiful, and I found that so uncomfortable. And I just love that you can find beauty in the discomfort of being challenged to do something different. And then what can be discovered and uncovered as it relates to the pausing and the slowing down. And that in the system that we live in, so in the white supremacist, patriarchal, capitalist system that we live in, that is shunned. That we are taught to do quite the opposite, right?
Mm-hmm.
So put your head down, talk as quickly as possible, drive as quickly as possible, get to the end as quickly as possible. If you win the race, then you're the winner. If you don't win the race, then you're the loser. And that our bodies and that our somas are really not seen in their entire humanity, but particularly for those who are people of color or people of culture, that there are ways in which the system denies your humanity and only sees you as having the ability to produce. And if you can produce, either because you were brought here in chains or you were forced here through migration, then you are then given a small token that allows you to survive maybe like a quarter, but then you have to have like all of these other things you also do, which also forces you to produce so that you can then maybe be able to survive, not thrive, but just survive. And just the inability for so many people that I worked with in my career as a lawyer advocate, many day laborers, many domestic workers when I first started my career, that were in this system, and the system was just perpetuating this dehumanization of their bodies and of their work and their productivity, and their inability to slow down, right? Because capitalism just doesn't allow you to do that, right? So one of the things that I think is so radical about being in these spaces is this discomfort that we feel when we are asked and challenged to slow down, when we are either describing our traumas or describing a hard thing or trying to get a facilitated group to the end of that agenda, or trying to produce, or we are in this constant like rapid, it's almost like rapid fire movement that has been, I think, embodied. And so what does that discomfort allow us and open up when we actually are pausing to feel what we feel, to connect with the thing that is underneath what we are bringing up. And I think that was one of the biggest takeaways and the biggest lessons for me, and something I've been trying to practice in my everyday, although it's not always easy to do, right? It's not always easy to do. And so what does it mean to listen to your body every once in a while and say, you know what, I'm going to sit for 5 minutes, or I'm going to take a walk for 15 minutes and really give my body what it needs, or I'm going to go literally hug a tree, because that I know that my soul nerve, my vagus nerve needs that in this moment, so. Yeah.
Just breathing into that. I'll have some water too. Thank you for that.
Hydrate.
Hydrate. A couple words that came up while you were talking. One was responsibility. Like, what brings me here brings me to these people meeting together, bringing me to greater humility, to learning, to doing better, is responsibility. Like, I just feel this responsibility to do better, to be better, it's the responsibility of my nature, which is like to feel and to sense. And when I'm sensing, or I'm facilitating as a coach or as an educator, spaces that I'm wanting to facilitate in a way that is agreeable and enjoyable and safe and brave for everyone. Like, how do I do that? And so I think was great relief in being a part of this program for me, because I feel like I am answering to the call of being responsible, And so I think maybe that's also the urgency I'm feeling or have been feeling around. I got to finish. I got to do this project. Even though like my kids are home, it's camp, it's not camp, it's work and full time, and
Yeah.
and like there's that urgency, right? Which is like this norm, right? This like what we're trying to combat, the urgency, everything must get done and it must be right and must be by a certain deadline. And so how do I live through that
Yeah.
and still be responsible,
Right. Right.
And coming here too, like, and we've been, emails here and there. I'm not ready yet. I'm like, and then, there's like this understanding of like, whatever will come will come. Like, we're
Yeah.
ready, right? Like,
Yeah.
how many years have we been ready? So, all that to say, one of the other things you brought up, Resma, here's his book. You have it. You showed me your book too.
Yeah.
My Grandmother's Hands. I loved hearing him, and I think we talked about this on our first call together, was and as a coach, one of the cornerstones of coaching and in healing is presence. Like, what is the presence that the practitioner is bringing? And it didn't even matter what he said, although it was so incredible and potent, but it was the presence that he offered, right? It's the presence that each of these facilitators or educators, authors are bringing. And I really was able to receive his. And one of the words or the phrases that he said was, of course, the slowing down. And he just embodied that and like called people on it, invited them into that. But it was also, what spoke to me was, I'm not going to get this right, but around, are we really here? Or this is what I heard. Am I really here to get more skills? Or am I here to build my capacity? And I think that's part of my work is, yes, I always need more skills, right? But it's that capacity to hold, like the healing spaces that I offer, the clients that I get to meet, the people that I get to encounter day to day, like what is the kids that I'm parenting, how can I build my capacity?
Yeah. Yeah. I've been thinking a lot as you're speaking. I've been thinking a lot and working with this concept recently of space. So there's this notion of liminal space, right? Of the liminal space of when one is making a big transition in life. And actually the art of holding space is a book that I'm also lots of books on the bookshelf. And
Where's your book? Yeah.
Right. Well, that's coming.
That's coming, right?
But there's no urgency.
No, right.
This notion of space, and when you're bringing this up, then this idea of capacity and the skill and the responsibility, right? And what comes to mind in that for me is how do we gift ourselves as practitioners, as healers, as coaches, as facilitators? How do we gift ourselves this space so that we can then come from a place of fullness in our efforts to create space for others, right? So even when we say, like when we give ourselves, for example, the gift of 3 breaths, I was trying to, this week has been particularly busy for me. So talk about urgency. And I also have a kid going off to college this month. So
Wow.
morning I woke up and I was like, I haven't started on the packing list, so it was
Right.
that kind of thing. But, you know, I've been having trouble with 9 breaths, right? I was like, man, I'm a yoga teacher. I can't take 9 breaths right now. Okay, I'm gonna try 3. I'm gonna see what 3 feels like, right? So I I I'm bringing this up because it feels like it's important for me to bring and allow that spaciousness in myself. That brings in a capacity to then hold also space for others, and that only can come through presence and slowing down, right? Because you can't hyperventilate 3 breaths. I mean, you could, it probably wouldn't really do its job.
Mm.
um, Yesterday I talked a dear friend through 3 breaths
Mm-hmm.
because he was having a particularly heavy week, and then automatically what that created was just like a release, and then just like he became tired. I was like,
Wow.
great, well, that's your body telling you that actually what you need in this moment is rest, right? So slowing down enough to just give yourself that amount of space oftentimes then will also translate to, oh, this is what my body is actually
Yeah.
telling me in this moment. um yeah, and that, how do we build more of that capacity, right, to really be showing up for ourselves and the people around us in a way that it's that slows us down enough to sense into what our nervous system is doing, what our needs are in the moment.
Mm.
It may not necessarily be breath, because one of the things we also discussed in this class, which was
Yeah.
really awesome, was breath isn't always accessible to folks. There
Mm-hmm.
are that breathing for some people is, triggers a trauma response, and
Yeah.
people oftentimes can't find their breath. And so that's something that I'm noticing as well. It's like, okay, well, if I can't access breath, or if someone that I'm working with can't access breath, is there physical movement, or is there touch? Is there a sense of sight? Is there a sense of smell? Is there a sense of taste? Is it something that they can then connect back down into their bodies, so that we can be working from a place of just a little bit more grounding, and
Mm-hmm.
less thinking brain, and more feeling into our sensations, so that we can really get into what's happening in this moment.
Mm-hmm. And maybe it's not a place, like obviously we're looking for, and I know Rev Kuta Williams talked about safety, the 3 essential needs of safety, belonging, and dignity.
Mhm.
And for some, it's maybe safe enough. Maybe it's not full safety or feeling safe, but what is safe enough for you and your body?
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm. What
yeah.
is safe enough? Yeah, what is safe enough? I mean, I grew up in a household in which there was pretty constant, I would say, what I would categorize as unregulated abuse, um, I have only come to understand and realize that now as an adult, what the abusive behavior did to me in my body, in my soma. And so I don't, I don't, I didn't know for a long time what safe enough meant
Mm.
for me. So when I started practicing yoga, this is many years ago now. I was living in New York City, working at the Department of Homeless Services. So working with homeless families. It's just out of law school. And I was taking all of these cases home with me, right? And I was not really understanding. There's this, I myself was housed as a child, but oftentimes had to, by way of survival, really try to take myself out of my home and into my own space to create that sense of safety for myself. I needed to disconnect from the thing that was happening in the home because I needed to create a safe place for myself, even if it was just like moments in time. And so when I started working with families, you know, a lot of that was also it was very traumatic. There was a lot of trauma involved in that and in that work. And so when I came to the practice of yoga, I came to it as a place of, I didn't really know what yoga was. I didn't really understand anything about the roots and the, you know, sort of like how it came to the West,
Mm-hmm.
right? I just came to it because I was like, oh, it's something I will try. And it quite literally, I will say, like, I say this, that like yoga saved my life. I think
Wow.
that if yoga hadn't come into my life in that moment of time, I think I would be a very different person in this moment. Because there were a couple of things that happened. It allowed me to safely move in at a pace that I needed in that moment in time and connect some of the emotionality that was going on in my body with a calming of my mind that I had never in my life experienced. The only other time in my life that I had ever really experienced that amount of calm was when I was in the pool. So I was a swimmer when I was little. I always loved to swim. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I loved about going underwater was that I couldn't hear all the voices.
Wow.
That all I could hear was the exhale, the bubbles being made by my exhale.
Wow.
Right? So I was very okay. And I was always like really like focused on that sound of the bubbles, right? And during the swim. So it was very meditative for me. I didn't know it at the time, but now when I was like, oh, that's what I was feeling like. I needed to submerge myself in order to like get away from what was happening out there. And though, you know, so when I came to yoga, it was really about like, oh wow, like I feel in that way that I could feel when I was underwater. I could feel that sense of like safety in my psyche and in my body, because I was learning to regulate, right? I was learning to regulate in a way that I had never really regulated before. And so that was like the beginning for me of like, you know, a practice that really allowed me to get much more into my body, to understand the power of breath, to understand the impact on the nervous system, and why I think, you know, now with a new lens of how I approach yoga, with a much wider lens of honoring the practice, honoring the original right teachers of this embodied practice, and South Asia, and you know, and lots of Buddhism and lots of practices that came up through Hinduism, but not necessarily held through any one religion. I am now learning to be much more expansive as a teacher and integrating all of the, you know, the 8 limbs, which are practices of like how you live in life, first by focusing on your own wisdom, in your own being safe in your own body, creating spaces in your body, sitting with discomfort, and then being able to like move, and with using the breath and move through some of the sensations and some of the hard things that come up, you know. And so That's just a little bit about, I think, connecting to finding that place where you're feeling just a little bit safer
Mm-hmm.
than where you were last week or last year,
Right.
5 years ago. Because it's a journey, right? It's a journey to being, to just creating more safety for yourself, more dignity for yourself, more belonging for yourself, and being able to really then share that out. Share it, or start with yourself and then share it out with your family, your community, you know, as expansive as you want to be. It's a gift.
Hmm. And how you show up professionally
Yeah.
with all these people, right? That you're coaching, impacting,
Mhm.
consulting, helping.
Right. Mhm.
The work doesn't end ever, really.
Yeah, I think that the work for me is, I think the healing work is not, it's not work per se. I think the healing is a gift I give to myself.
Mm-hmm.
Every
Yeah.
time I sign up for these kinds of courses, or
Yeah.
I take a weekend to do a retreat, or I give myself a half an hour to lie down for a nap, to slow down. It's a gift.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a gift.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I mean, there's a lot of background noise happening. I don't know if you're picking it up. And like, as I'm wanting to be really immersed, and I am, I'm like, there's my whole soma is like trying to like block everything out. And I'm like, no. And I'm like muting myself, unmuting myself, muting myself. And I don't want to be distracting. And this will also come out through audio on the podcast, but it's just interesting.
Right.
It's like I'm trying to control the environment so I can have this like uninterrupted sacred space with you. And then there's like life. Summer's happening outside my door, and like I want to go out and like just like everybody shut the fuck up. That's really what's happening right now. And I'm not doing that, so I just have to let go of that. So apologies for any seeming distractions to the listeners, to
okay.
you, to my abrasive language. There it is, present moment.
There it is.
That's what's
there
happening.
it is. I mean, that's the thing, is that, you want to be having, you want to sit for this, right?
Yeah, exactly.
How many times, like as a parent, has it happened that you want to sit for like 20 minutes? I just want to sit for 20 minutes. And then it's like the thing or the dog.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like, oh, my dog, the mailman, or the kid, or the other kid, or the call from the parent, or whatever it is in life. I think that we live in a world, and in our lives, we live in a place in which there are just a lot of interruptions.
Yeah.
There are interruptions. And I think that's also part of the practice. I think
Right.
a lot of times in our practices, in our contemplative practices, it's like, oh, I can't do yoga because I don't have an hour and a half. Or I can't do meditation because I don't have 45 minutes. Or I can't do this because I don't have the time, the uninterrupted time to do it. But, I want to challenge us to really think about, like, what if your practice is the interruption?
Yes.
Right? What if
My
your
practice is the noise outside while I'm recording this with you?
Yes, exactly. What if
and I've clearly have a lot to get better at. Yes. But yeah, go ahead. The practice, I'm writing it down, is the interruption. I think that's
Right.
what I needed to hear today.
So when so it's like, oh, I'm going to record this podcast, everyone be quiet. And then there's the noise. And then it's like, what is your body doing right now? So maybe we could practice right now, like Julie, like what's your body? Where are you feeling that in your body in this moment?
I'm sweating.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, it's almost like my body, it adjusts to the noise outside. So if like, it's almost like I'm taking a hit, it's like, oh, there's the pan. Oh, there's the egg being fried. Oh, there's my son asking what his dad's making, and like my body's just contorting into a pretzel. That's what's happening.
Right. Yeah. This contortion. I always tell my, my yoga students, I say, getting on the mat and getting yourself into a pretzel is not the practice. The practice is that once you're in the pretzel, if you can get there, because that's not even the thing,
Yeah.
or whatever uncomfortable position you're in, or whatever uncomfortable pose we're in, right? How do you allow in the prana, the
Mhm.
life force, not even the breath? Like, let's take away the breath for a minute. I mean, I know that, yoga is yoking, is unity, and we practice this through breath a lot.
Mhm.
But how do you bring in the prana, the breath, to that part of your body that feels the discomfort
Mhm.
when you're on the mat, in this case on your chair? How do you bring in the prana, in the life force, into that part of your body that feels the discomfort? What that allows you to do then is to say, if I could just bring it in without judgment.
Yeah.
You bring it in without judgment. So you're not trying to fix it. You're not trying to change it. You're just trying to, what you're doing is that you're allowing.
Yeah.
You're allowing. And then in that allowing, something shifts, right? If you just give yourself permission to bring it in, and then the practice on the mat is not the thing. The thing is, what do you do then in life, right?
Yeah.
And then when you're off the mat and then you feel like your body is in a pretzel, then you're pausing and you practice and practice and practice enough when you're on the mat that when your body is in a proverbial pretzel, because you're in the subway and someone's crashing into your, or
Yeah.
someone cut you off on the road, or someone's banging the pan when they're making eggs in the morning,
While you're recording a
whatever
podcast.
that, right, whatever that is that then you're allowing the life force to enter that place.
Mm.
Just allow. And then with every exhale, just do a little more release.
Mhm.
Just a tiny bit, even if it's like a microscopic release.
Even if it's just an intention of a release, right?
Yeah. We can always, I think, release and relax a little bit, just a tiny bit with every exhale.
Mhm. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
How's your body doing right now?
Oh, my body's
Let's take
good.
the focus off of mine and turn it onto yours.
Yeah, my body's good. I've been doing a lot of sitting this week
Mm.
because I've been at the computer. I'm going to be facilitating some retreats, and I've been just working on agendas and trying to, line things up and figuring out timing and all this stuff. So I've been doing a lot of time at the computer. So my hips are a little tight right now,
Yeah.
so
Sitting.
yeah, just the sitting. I think that the sitting is not good for us, and
No, it's not.
I'm gonna do some standing later. I'm gonna do some walking. I'm gonna do a little bit of stretching and really just getting a little bit more loose in my body, and some something that also helps me is to helps connect with the earth is just getting my head below my heart a little bit. So some
Mm.
forward folds or some child's pose. And I had a teacher tell me once that the child's pose when your forehead's on the ground
Yeah.
and your knees are bent and your seat is towards the heels. You're facing down towards the ground. When your forehead is on the ground, it allows you to give your thoughts up to the earth, right? So when you have very busy mind,
I like
it
that.
allows just giving your thoughts to the earth. So much time I think we spent with this thinking mind and trying really hard to think through all of the things. And if we could just allow ourselves to just relax enough to give our thoughts to the earth, just to be able to surrender, just surrender to the moment.
I love that. It made me think of like how I often refer to it and how I've heard of it as like we're just like neck ups walking with our, consciousness neck up. But when you said head below your heart, that brought a whole new meaning to like being in the body and how do we integrate the head into the body?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that image. I've never heard it put that way,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure many people have, but I haven't.
So
So
yeah,
thank you.
no,
Head
yeah.
below your heart.
Yeah, just have
I know you meant it physically as well, obviously, right?
physically as well as, yes, physically as well as, sort of in the consciousness, right?
yeah, in the consciousness.
So it's a practice, right? And I think I think we have to practice it, right? I think we can understand it, but I think that the more you practice it, I think that's why the embodied practices are,
Yeah.
there's Corey Muscara is an author, who's also a monk, and he has a really interesting take on this. And the other day, he talks about the busyness of the mind and the murmurs of the heart, and the fact that the mind can be so loud. Our mind can be so loud, and our heart oftentimes isn't as loud as our
Yeah.
right. So yeah, I thought of that when we were talking just now about. So he said the other day, be careful not to let the noise of your mind overpower the whispers of your heart. Yeah.
We need to hear it in so many different ways, right? It's like you just saying head below your heart just impacted me in such a different way.
Yeah.
What it means to be embodied and like what happens to your head when because it's almost like my head is still attached to my body as I'm being embodied, and somehow like that helped me integrate it. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's like when Kelsey Blackwell, when she described what the soma was, like I had never, somatic experiencing, referring to the soma, like I'm thinking the body, right? But when she broke it down into integrating all of these parts, the emotional body, the energy body, the spiritual body, the thinking body, the feeling body, this is what makes up the soma. It's like, it's like connecting to the larger part with all of these parts of us.
Yeah.
And that was like, I needed to hear that. I had not thought about it in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, so often we think our body, when we say the body, we're like, oh, my legs, my arms, my organs, right? But that's not, that's just one aspect of our physical body, right? That's just like the vehicle, right? We have so much that we carry around because we have this nervous system, and then we have this essence, right? We have this, what is our essence, what is our spiritual self, the big self, big self, right? And oftentimes I think we just lose sight of that because we are not, as you're mentioning, we're not seeing the breadth of this wonderful and oftentimes not so complicated geometric pattern that is who we are.
Yeah.
And if we just allow ourselves to quiet this thinking mind, these thoughts, and understand when our amygdalas are triggered, and how much time and energy and space we give those triggered thoughts. If we could just slow down and bring some awareness into this, then we could really create, I think, interrelationships, both with people that we feel are close to us, and then people with who we feel like are so separate from us, so different from us, because they might have, they might have very different lived experiences from their countries of origin, or their, even if we live in the same country, oftentimes we have such different lived experiences. And once we come into wholeness with ourselves, only then can we understand there is nothing, absolutely nothing, that separates us from anything else, right? And how can we come into that connectivity in a deeper, richer way? That's what I feel like this moment in time, all moments in time, but for me, this moment in time is calling us to do much more deeply, to really connect to people who, sometimes, maybe we could walk down the street and say to ourselves, and when we see another person, like, I have nothing in common with that person. I'm so different than they are, and like, where's that voice coming from, right? Or like, when we are walking around and it's almost like it becomes like almost second nature to judge, right? To like judge another person because maybe they're wearing something, or maybe they chose to wear flip-flops in the winter, or whatever it is that we have on that day. They're like, why would they do that? Sometimes I catch myself being like, who cares? Like, what is it about you, like me, like speaking of myself, that like I feel that I cannot connect with that person, or I'm so different, or maybe I'm better than that person because I choose to have a particular way of, making my rice, or or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think that's a part of us that we're constantly longing for this connection, and then we are oftentimes so deeply in our heads that we believe these narratives about the separate self, that we're not able to then create those threads. Just throw someone a thread and see what happens. Like, so maybe just like challenge today, just like anyone, any person that you think, oh, that person's so different from me. Like, make a connection. There's so many studies that say that, making these kinds of connections, even with complete strangers, it leads to more happiness.
Yeah.
We're happier. We're happier when we connect, we're like, and then we spend so much of our days just being like, oh, I'm better, or they're different, or I'm different, and this is better, or I wouldn't have done it that way. Why did that person do it that way? Or why did they say that? I wouldn't have done that. If we could just,
what a waste.
Disrupt, right?
Yes, disrupt.
Interrupt,
disrupt, dismantle.
Dismantle that way of creating this almost superiority that we have, right? And I know that, this is lifetimes of work, and in many cases we have, Indigenous and people of color to thank for so many of these practices that just are circular, and that are whole, and that bring us into like a more caring feminist view of the world, like through the maternal and the connection of the circle
And the collective and the
the
contributions.
collective.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if we could do that just a little bit every day, just a little, just, throwing someone the thread of connection.
Love that.
What would that do for yourself? What would that do for your community? What would that do for the kind of world that we want to give our children? We want to be able to think 7 generations in front of us in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And what is that world? That's the world that I'm trying to build for myself and for my children and their children. I would love for there to be that unity that binds at the core.
Yeah.
That lack of separation at the core, that desire, that belonging, and the dignity, and that self-awareness to be able to say, I caused harm.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. Let's make it better, right? Not centering the I know better, but I want to do better, right? And I understand and I acknowledge that maybe it wasn't me, maybe it was my people that did harm.
Yeah.
Right. And I can do what I can do in this lifetime.
Right. Thank you for your clear vision and putting all of that into words. I have notes here from everything you've said. My body started relaxing when the noise outside started diminishing, and then I heard a door close. I'm like, okay, we're safe. I'm safe. And then I appreciate what you've named and who you've acknowledged and what you've voiced as your vision and the work that is yours to do. And that's not also work. Like you named that. This is not work. It's also a gift that you're giving to yourself. And yeah, there's many places we can go. I just want to bring to mind the time and see how you're doing with it, and also want to invite you and then those who are listening to get to know you more and like what you may be offering. You've talked about this retreat to me that you have coming up that sounds exciting and incredible, and potentially life-changing for those people who will attend. I know those are heavy words, life-changing, but possible, right?
It's life-changing. It's life-changing.
Okay, so those are good words to use.
Yeah, no, it is life-changing. I think that transformation can happen in moments in time that of our own choosing. And Jessica Sandhu and I will be co-teaching a yoga and meditation retreat in the Sacred Valley in Peru in March of 2024. It is a 7-day retreat, which will be absolutely 100% immersive in both yoga practice and philosophy, and then also we'll be bringing in shamans and indigenous people of the Sacred Valley of the Incan people to create a transformative space that will nourish people's bodies and souls, and will connect to a peoples who have a very active practice from their ancestors, from, you know, thousands of years, you know, of indigenous practice. And so these healing practices are, again, sort of a gift. And we offer this in with a lot of humility, and also a lot of energy. So thanking all of my ancestors for that, also thanking, you know, the ability that I have and the possibilities, so much gratitude for both yoga, the art and practice of yoga, and all of the people who have come before us in allowing and bringing this practice to us, and then allowing us to be able to teach, because that's an honor, and then also the indigenous practices of what is now Peru, and just the decolonizing of the practice. So just the peeling away of this is all only being for certain bodies, or only being for certain people, but hopefully allowing the spaces to really create real, vulnerable, but generative space. So yeah, just excited for that.
Wow.
Opportunity to be able to bring folks there to you know, my place of origin.
Wow, that's incredible.
Next year.
So where, I mean, I'll put this in the show notes too, but where can people find out about this incredible offering?
Yeah, so it's in my partner's website for now. It's also on my website, so flaviajimenez.com. You can go on, and you go onto my landing page, and there's information there. All of the information, including, you know, pricing and time and dates and information to apply, is in jessicasandu.com /Peru. And yeah, we already have some folks signed up, you know, even though we're well, you know, we have we do have plenty of space, but we have
amazing.
I know that it was
Congrats.
lots of folks interested in the past, and I think that it'll be a great success.
Yes. Wow. Congratulations. And that sounds beautiful, powerful. And I'm so glad that you're sharing it here and what you're doing. I'm so glad that we've met. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, no, I just want to thank you so much for, you know, opening up the space, for being, you know, such a good host, and for, you know, allowing our conversation to happen so fluidly, and including the interruptions that you may have heard in your background.
All for inclusivity.
All for inclusivity. Yeah. And yeah, just so grateful for your time and your energy.
Thank you. I really appreciate your gratitude and how you acknowledge people and teachers and practices and nations and peoples, and how you call that into what it is that you're expressing. I really appreciate that. And I guess before we end, I mean, of course, I'm so grateful that we're here talking, and that I got to meet you and get to meet you and be in touch with you and hear from you and learn from you and talk together. Is there anything else you want to share, like that feels relevant or resonant, like I said earlier, about this program, about it, how it will impact you think, going forward with your work, or just anything, like in closing?
In closing. No, I just feel so much gratitude to all of the teachers that came and, you know, offered their wisdom and shared their resources with us during our class. We've named some of them today, but there were so many. And the curriculum and the time and the care that it took to pull together the class. And I just will be continuing to learn, because I feel like in class there were so many things that were offered that no, we're not able to get through all of the things or all of the books or the resources. But some of these practices, like I said, I have integrated them and will continue to learn and integrate them into my own both coaching and facilitation and other consulting work that I do, because it feels so resonant for so many people. So many folks that I work with are deeply interested and engaged, and just hungry for practices of embodying and the importance of social justice and racial justice in our world in the moment. So just deep gratitude and lots of humility as I move forward. So
nice. Thank you for that. I just pulled up all some of the teachers. I'll name them probably like when I air this podcast live. But so many people. I'm seeing their faces. Thenmori Sundarajan. She was the presenter, the author that spoke about the caste systems. And that was so impactful for me.
I still think a lot about that conversation.
Her presence, her heart, and the wisdom that she shared. I mean, everybody's so amazing. And I didn't get to hear everybody's yet, but I just finished listening to Patrice Cullors on parenting, abolitionist parenting. Felt very timely right now. And anyways, I'll mention those names and offer acknowledgement when I can do that more appropriately, like on the podcast. But I feel always like this idea of like the divine appointment of like who's showing up, who's signing up at this moment in time, and then like all these incredible participants who shared the space with us, and then people just speaking and honoring their own experiences and getting to hear their experiences, and that always a great privilege and learning for me. And I feel like I haven't even really dove into all of this, but feel very grateful and privileged to be a part of it and to be learning and committed and taking the action that feels right in my body to be doing so. And Dr. Ruby Gibson, Global Warming Woman.
Yes.
I was listening to hers again, and there's so much that she said. I know we're not recapping, but I think it was her that said like sensation is the language of the body. And that was also so powerful. And I'm not doing it justice, but can you feel it as I'm talking?
I can feel it. I can feel it.
The impact.
Yes.
The impact that, so I'm grateful that we've come together to collaborate on this conversation. Yes. And thank you, Flavia. I look forward to being in touch.
Yes. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you. We'll talk again soon.
Yes, we'll talk soon. Bye.